Hello and welcome to episode 89 of Glitch Report. My name is GnittWitt. Thank you so much for stopping by, saying hi, kicking it with me today on the stream of dreams, the show of shows, and everything in between. You can find everything that I do over at my Linktree, linktree.com/GnittWitt, GnittWitt, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, you name it. I am out there. I'm working. I got my working shoes on today, brother. Let me tell you something, brother. Oh God. Okay. WrestleMania has come and gone, and I hate to make this podcast a wrestling podcast, but I think that's exactly what we're gonna do. But we're gonna save wrestling talk towards the end of the show. So this is still a video game podcast as much as I can make it so, at least for this week. We do have a great show. We have a decent amount of news. We got some Star Wars Outlaws news, some Dead Space news. We got Fallout news, lots of Fallout. Honestly, if you're like, what can I expect on this episode? It's a lot of Fallout talk. It's going to be a lot of wrestling talk. Again, towards the end, don't worry. I will warn you when the wrestling comes. When the wrestling comes, you will know. And then also probably talk a little bit more about Horizon Forbidden West. Yeah, still poking at that, still playing that, and some other news stories in between. But yeah, it's been a week. I have not maybe played as many games as I was hoping to play. I feel like I played more games last week, especially as it pertains to other Horizon titles such as Forza Horizon. But I have been moseying my way through Horizon Forbidden West. I have been looking at Fallout games with the TV show coming out. I was like, I've never played Fallout 1 or 2. I've played 3. I've played New Vegas. I've played 4. Actually, very recently finished 4. I did try 76, but what else you got? So I did install Fallout 1 and 2 on the personal computer. I've not had a chance to play those yet. My understanding is that there's maybe not a huge difference between 1 and 2, at least from a mechanics gameplay improvement standpoint. So I might just fire up 1, see how 1 is. I might fire up 2, I don't know. But those are old games, and those games are very different from what we know of Fallout to be today. Fallout, of course, more of an isometric, turn-based RPG with 1 and 2. And then once Bethesda got a hold of them, Bethesda really applied their first-person action RPG, formula of, running around an open world, shooting guns in first person, doing the stuff that you did in Oblivion, doing the stuff that you did in Morrowind, in the other Elder Scrolls games, and applying that to Fallout. So there might be people out there that are like, oh, Fallout as I know it didn't used to be Fallout, and that is the case. That being said, I don't think Bethesda significantly changed the vibe or the tone of Fallout between post 2. My understanding is 1 and 2 are still like Pip-Boy and post-apocalyptic and the Wasteland and vaults and all of that stuff, but I've never played the original Fallout games. I might give those a chance. I understand they're old ass games, but that's never stopped me before. So that's what I plan on playing, but let's actually cover some news. We got a decent amount of news. This news story coming from Video Games Chronicles. As always, shout out to Video Games Chronicles. Star Wars Outlaws has received a release date, which I wasn't maybe quite expecting release date yet, but there were kind of rumors and stuff floating around of like, oh, are they going to make release this year or not? Like, what's going on with that game? Are they going to come out in 2024? Are they not? When can we expect it? Is this going to be a Summer Game Fest thing? Is this going to be a, end of year type deal? But they have confirmed it along with some controversial announcements. But the good news is that Star Wars Outlaws is coming to PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC August 30th. So there you go. If you were like, hey, I want to play a Star Wars open world type thing, when can I play it? August 30th. However, players who purchase the game's Gold or Ultimate editions will receive 3 days of early access in addition to digital goodies, including the game's season pass. So they are planning DLC for the game, whatever that DLC ends up being, new planets, new missions, new characters. I couldn't tell you, but because when they sell you additional content, they don't actually need to tell you what those additional contents are. They can just be like, it's coming soon, and just eat more of the slop. But anyways, the Star Wars Outlaws Gold Edition includes the base game, the season pass, which includes 2 narrative expansions, an exclusive Jabba's Gambit mission available at launch, and a character cosmetic pack, and up to 3 days of early access for the game. The Star Wars Outlaws Ultimate Edition includes everything in the Gold Edition, as well as the Sabak Shark Bundle, the Rogue Infiltrator Bundle, and the digital art book as well. Did we get pricing for this? We must have gotten pricing for this. Let me see if I can pull up pricing for this, because I know one thing about the pricing is that people were like, yo dog, the pricing is fucked. Let me see if I can pull that up. If I can't get the pricing now, I will get it before the end of the show. But there you go. If you want all of the Star Wars Outlaw, kind of going back to our conversation about how they sold Tekken and Street Fighter and things like that. If you want all of the Star Wars Outlaws and you want it early, which seems like a terrible idea, because what if you buy the game 3 days early to find and then you're one of the first people on earth to find out that Star Wars Outlaws sucks ass or something like that. Just buyer beware with this stuff, especially because when you're spending extra expensive monies on this stuff. But anyways, the good news is we're getting a date, August 30th for Star Wars Outlaws. Now I do have some bad news. This news has been weird, and I think it's weird because EA wants to have their cake and eat it too. They want to cover their tracks. They want to keep their cards close to their chest. And because I just don't think they know what the fuck they're doing. But Dead Space, the Dead Space 2 remake. So let's go back. Let's have some context. They remade Dead Space 1. Dead Space 1 has sequels in the form of Dead Space 2 and Dead Space 3. The question was, going into a potential Dead Space 2, or sorry, let me rephrase that. The question was, going into a potential follow-up of the Dead Space remake, was, are they going to remake Dead Space 2, or are they going to make a sequel to the Dead Space remake? Because those are like slightly different things, because there are different things about one and the remake. There's different things, right? So that was the question, right? And we never really got what I felt like was a clear answer. We just kind of kept calling it the Dead Space 2 remake, for lack of a better word. And then this news came out and it really muddied the waters. And then EA put out an update that further muddied the waters. And now I'm just sitting here thinking, and we'll cover it. I'm gonna cover it, but I'm just gonna say this right here and now. I don't think we're getting another Dead Space game. I just don't. I think this has been such a mess. I think this has been such a clusterfuck that if you haven't played the Dead Space remake, you should play it. And if you have and you want more of that, you should play the Callisto Protocol, because that's about it. But let's cover it. So Dead Space 2, this is the original reporting, and then I'll get to the update in a moment. Dead Space 2 remake was reportedly shelved following lackluster sales of the first game, as well as EA kind of moving around the studio, EA Motive, being moved around because of a restructuring of the company. So EA Motive made Dead Space remake. They are currently working on that Iron Man game, and EA has added EA Motive also worked on Star Wars Squadrons. If you never played Star Wars Squadrons, that is the flight combat simulator. You know, you're not playing a soldier, guy. You're not playing a Jedi. You're not playing a smuggler. It's, yo, dog, you want to fly some X-Wings and TIE Fighters? Boom, that's the game for you. So the point is that EA had added Dead Space, the Dead Space remake studio Motive, to the Battlefront development team. They were like, you know what, you guys are going to be in charge to some extent on working on both single player and multiplayer Battlefield experiences. They called them experiences because I don't think they know what the fuck they're doing with Battlefield either. But the point is, the people that made Dead Space already working on that Iron Man game, now being added to potentially multiple projects related to Battlefield. So it seemed pretty clear that if they couldn't do all of the things that they originally wanted to do, they were going to cut Dead Space. And that was kind of the reporting. Okay. That's according to Giant Bomb's Jeff Grubb, who was discussing Developer Motive's current projects following the news that EA had made the studio part of its wider Battlefield teams. Jeff Grubb, who's a reporter for Giant Bomb, said they were working on Dead Space 2. They are no longer working on it, he claimed on Wednesday. It's on the shelf because the first game had lackluster sales, is how it was phrased to me. EA responded to Jeff Grubb's claim with an update that came out late yesterday. That update to EA, which was an EA spokesperson claiming to IGN. So EA responded to Giant Bomb's Jeff Grubb with a spokesperson telling IGN, saying, quote, we don't normally comment on rumors, but there is no validity to this story. That's all they said. Then earlier this morning, we got another update that's saying that Motive was reportedly hoping to make a new Dead Space game rather than another remake before EA put the franchise on hold again, which means we don't even know if they were making a remake of 2, a sequel to the remake, or some other game in the Dead Space series. And when you think about how messy that road to even getting this information out has been, I think it becomes fairly clear that EA is not prioritizing Dead Space in any way, shape, or form. And if the writing was on the walls, the writing has been on the walls for the future of Dead Space for some time now. And, because you can't put loot boxes in Dead Space. You can't put, cosmetics and battle passes and skins and battle royales and expansion passes and battle passes and all this shit. You can't put that into a single player sci-fi horror game, but you can in shit like Battlefield. Listen, I would love to be wrong. Dead Space remake, fantastic game for the most part. There are some spots that they could have further modernized. There are some spots that, and then there's also the fact that like the original game still holds up for better or for worse. But what I'm saying is that I just don't see a world in which we're getting another Dead Space game anytime soon. Microsoft out there saying, fuck what you heard. We love China. Oh, shit. Okay, so if you remember, this would have been, I want to say last year, Blizzard had kind of cut ties with NetEase, one of the big Chinese game companies, and kind of fucked up their relationship and pulled its games from the Chinese market last January. So this would have been last year that basically Blizzard said, fuck it. We're out of the Chinese game business. Sayonara, NetEase, peace out, China. That was before Microsoft bought Activision Blizzard. Now Microsoft has entered a new agreement exploring bringing NetEase games to Xbox, as it's announced that Blizzard titles will be returning to China this year. Listen, Microsoft has continued to state, we do not have enough people buying our games. We do not have enough people buying our consoles. And if they think that there is a distinct lack of, how would I put it? If there's a distinct lack of growth within the company, then they got to start putting their games on platforms that, maybe are lacking in representation, for lack of a better word. So you ask me, this makes a ton of sense. Put the World of Warcraft in China if it's not already there. Put Call of Duty. Put Cheech and Chong in Call of Duty, and then put that Call of Duty in China. That's what I have to say. Let's move on. There has never been a better time to get into Fallout 4, is what Bethesda should have said, but I'm going to say it for you anyways, because the long-delayed PS5 upgrade for Fallout 4 is coming, and it is coming this month. Now, I got to be honest, when they delayed it, I was like, man, what is it? Just because Starfield just has taken so many of the resources from that company? At least that's what I thought. And then they announced that TV show, and I'm like, oh, they're going to time and I don't even know, maybe I said this on the podcast. I'm not trying to say I'm smarter than I actually am, but I feel like I would have mentioned on the podcast that, they're going to put out this Fallout 4 update when the show comes out. And ding, 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 that is exactly what they're going to do. The scheduled update will be coming to Xbox Series X and S and PS5 on April 25th. Now let's cover some of the updates that you can expect for the game. Experience up to 60 frames per second and increased resolution, reads Bethesda's blog post about the update. Fallout 4 players on PS4 and Xbox One will receive a free update with stability improvements, login, and quest fixes, according to Bethesda. Let's see if we can actually pull up the list of stuff. Okay, so let's see here. The update, so basically, if your PS4 version of Fallout, your PS4 version of Fallout 4 becomes the PS5 version of Fallout 4. You don't gotta buy nothing or any of that $10 upgrade. It just, you get it. You already got it. You get it. Okay. This free update will include native applications for the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S version, as well as performance mode and quality mode settings, as well as stability improvements and fixes, experience up to 60 FPS and increased resolution. They also have an update for PC players, widescreen, ultra widescreen support, as well as fixes, various quest fixes, updates, all that stuff. It's coming to Epic Game Store. It'll be Steam Deck verified. What else we got? There'll be some more content coming to Fallout 4, including the free Creation Club items, Enclave Remnants. You're going to get some weapon skins, some armor skins, a new Tesla cannon, a Hellfire power armor, Exo 2 power armor, the heavy incinerator, the makeshift weapons pack. You can turn a piggy bank into a gun or some damn thing. There's going to be a Halloween workshop event, Halloween workshop. So you can put a bunch of, if you remember in Fallout 4, you can build those settlements and upgrade your settlements and manage your people. If you want to, you don't really have to, though they do make you do some of it in the game. But anyways, now you can put Halloween decorations in your town. Spoilers, but the very minor spoilers. You get out of the vault, you get into town, right? You meet Codsworth out in the town. Codsworth is out there. And once you meet Codsworth, it's kind of like the start of you, repopulating the town and rebuilding the town. And that's the part where I'm talking about, where now it's like, hey, do you want to put a bunch of jack-o'-lanterns and stuff in your town? You can do that if you'd like. So again, that is coming out on April 25th, which is probably around the time that most normal people will have finished that show. The show's out now on Amazon Prime. 8 episodes long. They're about an hour and change, hour 6 minutes or so long episodes. So if you're watching a couple episodes a week, give or take, that shouldn't take you too long to do it. But like I said, April 25th, that free update is coming for everyone who owns every version of Fallout under the sun. Fallout 4, I should say. So that PS4 version becomes your PS5 version. You know, things didn't look great when they had laid off half of the staff. It doesn't look great now that they've gone further with some changes in staff, but the Immortals of Avium studio has reportedly furloughed the majority of its staff. Now, Ascendant Studios had laid off almost half of its employees last year, and now they're furloughing the rest of them. Now, this is according to a LinkedIn post by former employer Chris Mornes, which has been corroborated by Polygon reporter Nicole Carpenter. Ascendant Studios has furloughed the majority of their staff, said Mornes, who left the studio last summer to join Phoenix Labs. I can't imagine that what that would be like, as that is worse than getting laid off, because you don't get, if you're getting furloughed, you're not going to get severance. You're not going to be able to apply for benefits and shit like that. It's this is worse. This is, you know what? Like, before I get mad, I'm going to read. Furlough is an imposed leave of absence from work, which is typically unpaid. While employees technically keep their jobs and are expected to return to work at some point, it means they don't qualify for things like severance pay. This is horseshit. This is garbage. If you're just shut down just shut it all down and let these people collect severance and let them move on from their lives. They put out this game. They worked on the game. They deserve the severance that they're owed. This is some of the worst shit. I've seen some egregious stuff, and I'm sure, you listening, you watching the show, however you're getting this. If you've been listening if you've been rocking with the show for some time, we have heard all sorts of garbage from game developers in terms of laying them off and, it's a hard decision to make, all this stuff, whatever. But the idea that they can't even get severance, like, what the hell? What the hell? Nicole Carpenter, Polygon reporter, said, this lines up with what I heard at Immortals of Avium developer Ascendant Studios, that a large portion of the staff was recently furloughed. Haven't been able to confirm the numbers, and Ascendant hasn't responded to multiple requests for comments. You'll fuck the people involved. That's just trash, man. Oh my God, let these people, if you're gonna cut them, let them move on from their lives. Man, I don't understand. I don't understand. We are wrapping up news with this last story. That does not mean that this podcast is ending anytime soon. And I'm very excited about this news story because I cannot wait for more people to play this. Vampire Survivors, my favorite game of 2022. Numero uno, baby. Vampire Survivors is getting a PlayStation release as well as Contra themed DLC. Now, I want to stress for people who don't know nothing about Vampire Survivors that you should play that game. You should play, first and foremost, you should play Vampire Survivors, okay? Second of all, Vampire Survivors is like $6. Like it's dirt cheap. You can get currently on Steam, you can get all the DLC plus the game plus the soundtrack for like $11. But like I said, the main game is about $6 regular. I'm assuming it'll be around that price on PlayStation. You should play Vampire Survivors. You gotta play I don't know what else to tell you. The base game and all its DLC packs will be available for PlayStation 4 and PS5 this summer. The studio released a statement on Wednesday. They try to describe Vampire Survivors. I don't know if this is a great description. Vampire Survivors is a roguelike shoot 'em up which sees players choosing one of numerous characters who then automatically attack as their player fights through waves of monsters, with the aim being to survive as long as possible. And then the studio also revealed its latest Vampire Survivors DLC, Operation Guns. That DLC will be $2.49 when it releases on all platforms on May 9th, which means that by the time the PS5 version comes out, it'll be there as well. It says Operation Guns embraces the visceral simplicity of the classic Contra with build-focused characters that encourage min-maxing and stat manipulation, a ton of weapons, apparently 20 weapons including evolutions, and a difficulty curve that combines quintessential arcade hard gameplay with the original. Man, they're just trying to... Okay, listen, no offense to the statement, like, you just need to play it. The description is gonna be weird and goofy, but it's basically like an action arcade shoot 'em up. That's the best way to describe Vampire Survivors. And then that's only like half the game when I really think about what else there isn't. You should play Vampire Survivors. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we got news as it pertains to, well, not actually, we don't have any more news. Why would I? Oh, you know, oh yeah, I do need, actually, we're going to have news because I got to go check on the pricing for that Star Wars Outlaws DLC. Not DLC, the Gold and Ultimate expansion. I'm all over the place. My apologies. We're going to take a quick break and we'll cover the pricing for that Star Wars Outlaw stuff. We're going to talk Horizon Forbidden West. We're going to talk the Fallout TV show, and then we will talk wrestling. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the podcast. I have pulled up the pricing for Star Wars Outlaws and the 2 special editions, and these prices are fucking outrageous. Now, please note that because of the way, like, news kind of comes out and is often, you know, American focused and press releases and stuff like that, I am often mixing Canadian pricing with American pricing when I report some stuff. And I know it's messy as a Canadian. It sucks because then you're like, how much more is this going to cost? Or is this, you know, whatever. But what I have here right now are the prices for Star Wars Outlaws in Canadian dollars for the digital versions of the game as it appears on the PlayStation Store right now, and this is fucking wild. So standard edition, $89. That's fine. That's normal. We get it. The gold edition, which includes the season pass and 3 days of early access, is $145. Whew. The ultimate edition of the game, which also includes the Rogue Infiltrator bundle, the digital art book, and the Sabak Shark bundle, $170. $170. Man. Wow. I just hope the main game is good, dog. I don't know if I need all this other shit, and I also don't think that the shit that they're offering is that good of a deal anyways. Man, oh man. Oh, excuse me, I'm allergic to getting robbed. Damn. Who were the outlaws here? The characters of the game or Ubisoft? Man. $145 for that gold edition, $170 ultimate edition, and those are the Canadian pricing. Damn, dog. That's some shit. Okay. Let's move on. Let's talk games. Horizon Forbidden West. I'm continuing to poke at that game. One of the things that I have kind of gone back and forth on is how to approach navigation and exploration in open world games. Let me explain. For a long time now, video open world games have offered fast travel, right? You open up your map, and if you've been to that location or whatever, you can basically teleport to wherever you're going, right? To whatever, you know, so if you were in town and you left town and you did a bunch of stuff and you're like, oh, I need to return to town to sell my items or talk to somebody or tell them I completed the quest or mission or whatever, you know, you can just fast travel there. And different games do it differently, right? So for example, in, and I'm gonna not spoil anything, but like in Red Dead Redemption 2, you can either fast travel from your gang's hideout. If you go back to camp, you can fast travel there. Or if you have the camping equipment and you're just out in the plains doing whatever, as long as you're away from like, dangerous animals or enemies, you can set up camp where you can cook and sleep and craft arrows and do all that stuff. And from there, you can fast travel and basically teleport to a location. Now, the other thing is that, if you're in town in Red Dead, and Red Dead does it differently than a lot of others because they want to give you as many reasons to engage with the world as possible. So in Red Dead, if you're in town and you see a stagecoach, you can pay a guy to take you to another town if you want. You can also get on a train if you want in Red Dead as well, right? But by doing that, you miss, wandering off the beaten path, coming across a guy who is bitten by a snake who needs your help. You miss out on potentially, having people try to rob you, in the, dark forests or at night or whatever. You miss coming across all the collectibles in the world and all the different side missions and story stuff, right? But you get from A to B quicker. Now, in what's it called? In Horizon Forbidden West, the way that they do it is the game has a bunch of campfires, predetermined campfires, kind of spread out across the open world. If you go to one of those, you can save the game. You can do a quick save. You can do a manual save. You can fast travel from that campfire, right? And it's free. It doesn't cost you anything. You just fast travel and you're there, right? If you are out in the middle of the shit and you don't have a campfire near you, you can actually craft an item or buy an item that's called like a camping kit. And all that camping kit does is it allows you to fast travel. You use one camping kit to fast travel to any campfire you've been to. Now, there are also campfires in the towns as well. So, any place you've been to, any, major settlement or a small campfire or whatever, you can fast travel to, assuming you've been there before, right? And I've found myself doing a lot of fast traveling in Horizon Forbidden West because I cared more about the story. I'm just trying to get this main story wrapped up. I'm just trying to, finish the game for at least the main story and then see how much time I want to spend in the rest of the open world. And I feel like, and this is going to sound harsh and I don't really even mean it the way I'm saying it, but I find that the more you engage in fast travel in an open world game, the less that game has created an interesting and engaging environment for you to want to spend time in, right? I'll give you another example. I hardly did any fast traveling when I played Spider-Man. Why? Because swinging around the city is fun as hell. And yeah, occasionally you get like a little radar scan that's like, oh, some guys are stealing a car or gang warfare in the streets. And do you want to, it's an optional thing. Do you want to go engage? Do you want to stop them? And then away you go, right? Like, oh, I'm going to ignore the police scanner telling me I have an optional mission and I'm trying to get from A to B, right? But on top of that, just genuinely, swinging from building to building in Spider-Man is fun. Why would I fast travel when A, New York's not that big compared to other open world games, and B, it's just fun to do Spider-Man shit. Oh, I'm gonna, spend the next, couple seconds running along the side, I'm gonna run along the side of a building and then zip to the next one and then start swinging again and doing all these flips and stuff. It's fun, right? And again, if you want to engage with the world as you run by it, they are giving you reasons to like, hey, there's a carjacking happening. Hey, guy just stole a lady's purse, right? Same way in in Red Dead, you're going to come across a guy bitten by a snake. You're going to find somebody stranded on the side of the road. You find a dead horse somewhere and you're like, what's going on with this horse? Whatever, right? In Horizon, there are collectibles, there are plenty of side missions, there are monsters to fight and humans to fight, and there's tons of things to do in the open world, but it feels very static. Like, it doesn't feel very dynamic in the sense that, like, even when I come across, robots fighting humans and stuff, there's never like a lot of story stuff to it. It just feels like this is just happening for the sake of happening. And if I wanted to see the more significant side content, I need to look on the map and then go to that place, right? Oh, there's a green check mark on this part of the map. That person has a quest for me to do. I should just go there and do it, which means, does it really matter does the journey really matter if the destinations are so nakedly displayed in front of you, right? And if you haven't played a lot of open world games, this might not make a lot of sense, but like when you open up something like the Red Dead Redemption map, there are not nearly as many icons and shit on the screen as in something like a Horizon, as in something like a Horizon, as in something like a Assassin's Creed, right? Because they've put every collectible, every quest icon, every story mission, every location, they've just put everything on the map so you already know where it is, which maybe de-emphasizes some amount of exploration. Now, of course, you can turn off a lot of those elements of the menu in the game. You can ignore the map. You can just wander around. But at some point, it's like, to what end am I doing this, right? Because I could be more efficient in engaging with the stuff that's in this game if I knew where I was going, how close I was to the objective, and what to expect when I got there. Whereas in Red Dead, they don't put a lot of those icons on the map. They don't immediately tell you, hey, this is where this is. And in a lot of cases, you are getting this information about the world in Red Dead by talking to people in town who don't immediately or obviously seem like people who have information to give you, right? One of my favorite examples is like, you come across that guy bitten by the snake, right? You heal him or however you choose to. And he's like, hey man, you go into town and your next gun's on me, right? And then maybe you're not even going that way because you're doing other stuff. But eventually you go into town and that guy is sitting on the porch of the weapon shop drinking. And he's like, yeah, man, go. The gunsmith's my buddy, right? And then you go talk to the gunsmith and you're like, yeah, this dipshit's not paying his tab, but if he says that you can have a free gun because you saved his life, I guess if he died, I wouldn't be able to get him to pay me back what he owes me. So sure, have a free gun, right? And at no point is there a thing on the map that's like, go do this, go talk to this guy. There's none of that. It's all just in the world, all natural. Another great example of kind of open world game design, and some people might find this controversial, I don't know, but I actually think Fallout is a really great example of just encouraging you to explore the world. The reason why I say that is because, and I know people hate the Pip-Boy. Some people don't like the Pip-Boy. I get it, but just hear me out. When you look at the map in Fallout, it really only tells you which direction to go for the quests that you're on, the towns that you've already discovered, or the towns that you've heard of, and that's it, right? There's no like, hey, in this part of town, here's a person with a quest. Oh, here's where you can find a legendary gun. Like, you got to put in the legwork. And I think that's one of the things that I have enjoyed about, open world games is when I feel encouraged to explore for the sake of exploring, for the sake of uncovering, and not to explore for the sake of checking something off a list. Don't get me wrong. I love checking stuff off lists. I love just like cleaning up the map and being like, look at that. I finished 50% of this map. Half these side quests are done, whatever. Like, don't get me wrong. I don't mind doing that, but I'm often doing it in a way where I'm not as engaged in the world as I would be if I had to discover a lot of that stuff on my own. So that's kind of where I'm at in terms of how I feel about, the way that, Horizon is kind of structured, which is no different than the original game. Like, I'm not saying any of that. It's just like, because I have seen a lot of the tricks that Horizon Zero Dawn pulled in terms of what side content is there, what collectibles are there, what mysteries are there, what the structure of the tasks and the jobs and the, the bounties and the, like, I know how it works, right? And in fairness, if you had played, Fallout 3 or New Vegas and you fired up 4, you'd be like, oh no, I get how this open world works. But again, I would just argue that like games that don't immediately tell you where to go and what to do can definitely be frustrating. Don't get me wrong. You want a strong sense of direction, or at least some sort of guiding hand to push you in that direction. But I think about how, like in Fallout, once you get out of the vault, you can just find the main town in the game and then potentially be a further ahead physically in the story than you are from like a quest design standpoint, which is an interesting situation of like, oh, I was supposed to meet this character like 5 missions from now, but because I wandered into town, I wandered for like an hour just looking for shit, and I just came across Diamond City in Fallout 4, for example, and you're like, oh, this is where these people are, and this is where the story starts to pick up. Like, it's neat. But in the case of Horizon, it is, and games like Assassin's Creed and stuff like that, it can be very much this mechanical thing of like A, B, C, D in that order. You can't skip it. And we're going to tell you every step along the way what you're doing, where you're going. Elden Ring, another great example of like that map. First of all, Elden Ring blew my mind because when you open the map in Elden Ring, it seems pretty small. And then the physical map actually grows and is bigger and bigger and bigger as you explore. And you're like, holy shit, this game is like 3 times bigger than the map originally looked like. Oh my God. And that's a game that has very little, even compared to something like Red Dead or, Fallout in terms of go here, do this. But I think that's the one thing that like I do enjoy about those open world games is getting lost and exploring. And I feel like, yes, you can often turn off some of that direction based, kind of stuff. But I feel like if you turn off the direction based guidance and all you get for finding that thing is a thing you can check off the list that doesn't really feel like it has any unique story moments, doesn't really feel like it's doing anything other than giving you a reward, a naked kind of, exchange of goods and services. You kill 20 machines and I'll give you this or whatever. Like, stuff's not always that interesting, right? I might mess around with some, I feel like I've only explored like half the open world of Horizon. It seems like a large open world. Plus I still have Burning Shores to do, but, I just don't find myself getting lost and wandering around the way I did in some other open world games. So one of the things I might try to do, this is kind of getting it back to the whole fast travel thing. One of the things that I might do is actually not use fast travel anymore. Like if I'm trying to go from the end of the, if I'm trying to walk from one end of the world to the other, maybe I just do it all on foot. I don't know if I want to skip anything along the way, but then again, like I don't know how much of that stuff, the side content is particularly interesting or unique, right? Like I don't have the stories to tell from my time in a game like Horizon, from my time with a game like Assassin's Creed Valhalla or Origins or any of that stuff where it's like, oh, I just happened to come across something and it was fucking crazy. Like the craziest thing I can say in like Assassin's Creed Origins is I saw a bunch of like Romans get eaten by a hippo. And like, okay. And then like, how many more times is that going to happen? Right. Or, your story of like, oh, I snuck into like some, bad, some Viking base in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And then I killed everyone in the base. And then it said, congratulations, you killed everyone in the base. And then 5 hours later, I came across another base in a different part of town that looked almost exactly like the base that I was already in. Like, you see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying with the open world stuff? It's a weird thing where like you want to get lost in the world, but you want everything to be unique, but you also want to make it easy to navigate that world, but not too easy to navigate that you feel like there's no point in being open world. I don't know what else I'll say. That doesn't take away from my enjoyment of Horizon Forbidden West in general. I like the gameplay. I like the combat. I like crafting. I like looting. I'm interested to see where the story goes, even if I'm not 100% convinced, yet. But this is why I was like, oh, maybe I should fuck around with some other games, like games that like I can actually get lost and explore in, and it doesn't feel like I'm, basically running around what feels like a mall, checking stuff off a list. All right, let's move on from that. Like I said, I'm enjoying it. I'm going to keep playing it. Maybe next week I'll come back with some different games to talk about besides Horizon Forbidden West. I don't know. Let's talk that Fallout TV show. Hot damn, that Fallout TV show is good as hell. That I'm about 3 episodes in. I just finished episode 3 last night. I did start episode 1 shortly after watching some wrestling, and then I have watched episodes 1, 2, and 3, and that's a good show. And I think one of the things that I really like about it is, so if you think about, I saw the reviews and people were saying that like, oh, this Fallout TV show is up there with like The Last of Us is one of the best video game adaptations ever. And I'm not here to argue that one way or the other, because I'm not done. But one, I'll say that 3 episodes in to that Fallout TV show, and none of those episodes of Fallout made me feel as strongly or as passionately as I did about the Bill episode from The Last of Us. I mean, I would argue that like, and this is we're fucking comparing apples to oranges, but just bear with me here. But like the Bill episode of The Last of Us is one of the best episodes of TV ever made. Like, just, I don't care, like whatever, like compare it to anything. Bill's episode in The Last of Us is one of the best episodes of TV just ever made. And as of right now, we are not there with the Fallout TV show. So again, weird apples to oranges comparison, right? But that being said, the thing that the Fallout TV show does differently than The Last of Us is that they are basically setting it in the world of Fallout with their own story. So the premise is that one of the main characters is from Vault 33. And like anybody who is in a vault, at some point, if the vault didn't go bad on its own, you leave the vault and you see the wild, wasteland. In this scenario, of Fallout, it is taking place, in California, for the most part, kind of the California, Los Angeles area. Though they did show, I think, like Santa Monica in one of the episodes, Santa Monica Pier, stuff like that. But, basically one of the main characters anyways is a vault dweller. They get out of the vaults and they go do, the Fallout stuff. However, so even though it's a different story in terms of like, it's not something that was in one of the games, the character motivations behind leaving the vault, the character motivations behind wanting to explore the wasteland, the character motivations behind, not just running back to the vault and being like, fuck this, the wasteland's crazy, is similar to other stories in the Fallout games for sure. At least the initial premise and setup, which is fine, because if you ask me, I just want them to tell a good story in the Fallout universe, and I just want them to nail the aesthetic, the vibe, the tone of Fallout. And I think they've done that. I think they've done exactly that. The music is they're playing songs from the game, right? You're just like, I've heard this, Bob Crosby song or whatever, these 1930s, 40s, 50s, like crooner, like, stuff, like all that music's in the game. All that music is in the show, right? They're going for like this, like, alternative history pre-war vibe of like, oh, it's like pre-war, but we have a robot in our house who's like an assistant, type thing, but we're worried about the bombs falling. Like, all that stuff is in the show. The Pip-Boy is in the show. The vault design, like all of it has nailed the aesthetic so well. And I think the other thing that they nailed, which is hard to pull off is the goofy. There's a very dark Fallout swings wildly at times between having a very dark sense of humor because of the post-apocalypse and also just commenting on, you know, uh America versus communism and you know, Cold War stuff. Their commentary on that, their commentary on, you know, the collapse of civilization as it relates to post-apocalypse, you know, business, but also the goofiness of, like, you know, kind of a fish out of water story at times of like, oh, this person is in over their head. They don't know what the wasteland is like they don't, you know, they've been living under this, you know, this vault, but they don't know that it's a Mad Max type shit out there mixed with, again, that weird pre-war, like frozen in time vibe. So, and then also the ultra violence at times of the you know, kind of action in those games and the action in that show. There's not a huge amount of action from what I've seen so far, but everything that they have shown has been horrifically graphic, incredibly violent, and super gory, which is, again, that like, if nothing else, regardless of what you think of the acting and the characters and the story, they have nailed the vibe of Fallout to a T. And for that, you know, I have to give them props, because that is mostly what I wanted. I was willing to put up with maybe a dumb story. I was willing to put up with some maybe cheesy acting, but from what I've seen so far, I think the acting is relatively solid. I think the people ham it, you know, the actors ham it up when appropriate, and then mostly play it serious when appropriate, if there's some sort of heartstring tugging moment or whatnot. Set design is fantastic. You know, the world definitely looks like it's gone to shit, and they've, you know, oh, this town is kind of rebuilt by, you know, the some of the buildings in this town are like, you know, pieces of a rocket ship that fell from Earth or whatever, or all this, you know, fell from the sky and all this stuff. You know, they're trading in bottle caps. There's, you know, horrible stuff around, like, oh, this is how the barter system works, and this is the stuff people sell in town, and this is how human beings treat each other in the post-apocalypse, which is and it's, again, I think it's goofy at times. And when it is goofy, it is mostly effective at its comedy, incredibly effective with its action and violence. I think it well done set design and all of that stuff, costumes and all of that stuff. It just looks like Fallout, and it makes me want to go and finish the show, because I'm only 3 episodes out of 8 in, but also just making me want to fire up a Fallout game and be like, I want to be in that world, because it's a weird world. That's the other thing, is like, if I cannot stress enough, if you have never experienced Fallout before, it is weird. It feels like it shouldn't exist. It almost feels like it shouldn't exist. It shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be so off-putting. Off-putting is a strong word. It's weird. And I think if you enjoyed the games, you're going to love this. And I think if you watch the show and you like it, I think you'll probably enjoy the games, depending on if you can put up with some of the mechanics and gameplay stuff in the game. But like I said, if you are like, wow, I wonder what it's like to explore the world of Fallout, I still think the Fallout open world design of letting you kind of explore at your own pace and with, you know, an appropriate amount of guidance does lend to this, you know, belief that, like, oh, I came out of the vault and then I just started heading in a direction, and then I came across a farm, and this farm's run by robots, and I'm like, hey, what's up, robots? What's going on? And they're like, oh, we don't know how to fix the water. And you're like, okay, I'll fix your guys' water. And you meet a robot who has the personality mod of like a Wink Martindale, like a Monty Hall type game show announcer. And you're like, why does this robot talk like a game show announcer? And you're like, man, this world's weird as hell. Point is, I like the TV show a lot. I've been really enjoying it. My plan is to have every episode 8 and everything done by this time next week, so we can talk more about my thoughts on the show. No spoilers, anything like that. I'm not going to do that. There will be no spoiler talk. So, you know, plus also, like, you know, why would I spoil it when people might be getting into Fallout when that PS5 and Xbox Series X and S update comes out? Like, there's no point. This is the wrong time to be spoiling Fallout for anybody right now, considering, like, you know, I showed it to my folks, and my folks said don't know nothing about Fallout, and they're like, this show seems pretty good, and I'm like, all right, great. So that's that. And this is the warning. Turn back now. Stop the podcast if you don't want to hear wrestling talk. Which is funny because I've gone back and forth about talking about wrestling. There was a point last night when I was watching AEW Dynamite where I said to myself, I don't want to talk about wrestling on the podcast anymore. I wanted to this week, but I don't know if I want to. Woo-wee. But here we are. Let's talk about it. So WrestleMania happened on the weekend. You know, really, WrestleMania weekend is now more of WrestleMania week, especially if you are a fan of indie wrestling and the other promotions that are putting on shows in and around WrestleMania. I ended up watching, so if we don't count anything from WWE, I think I ended up watching like three other pay-per-views, 4 other pay-per-views. I watched the Defy show, which was a great show. Shout out to you know, Sinner, Saint, Sovereign. Shout out to Judas Icarus, Evan Rivers, and Travis Williams. Fantastic BC boys out there working. Great show at Defy. I watched Josh Barnett's Bloodsport 10, which was definitely a better show than the last couple of Josh Barnett Bloodsports that I've watched. Charlie Dempsey from NXT out there working, Shayna Baszler from WWE out there working, tons of people. Again, I would say Bloodsport, a much better show than in years past. I also watched, I didn't finish it. Did I finish it? I did watch all of DDT, which is also very good. DDT is a wrestling promotion out of Japan. At times leans a little more into comedy, a little more goofiness. So there is, like, you know, DDT's where like the wrestling doll Yoshihiko is from. There was also a mascot who fought Dan the Dad, which was also very good. Goofy stuff in DDT. Shout out to DDT. I did not end up finishing Tokyo Joshi Pro. I meant to watch all of Tokyo Joshi Pro and also watch the Tokyo Joshi Pro versus GCW show. Did not get a chance to do that. I still have my Fight subscription, so maybe I'll get around to that at some point. And then I also watched Ring of Honor, Supercard of Honor, which was a fantastic show with the exception of Dalton Castle versus Johnny TV in a Fight Without Honor. God, that match went on for far too long, way too long, and was just a complete snooze fest. I couldn't stand watching that match. I was very disappointed because I think Dalton Castle's great. I think Johnny TV is pretty good. I don't know why they necessarily needed to make their feud escalate into a Fight Without Honor match, especially considering, you know, Tony Khan's Ring of Honor has had great, fantastic Fight Without Honor matches. I think about the Dark Order versus the Righteous with the Lego and all of that stuff, like a you know, a very brutal match. But I don't know what the hell they were trying to do with that Fight Without Honor on Supercard of Honor. They brought in, what's his name? Paul Walter Hausen, who is like an Emmy Award winning, like, writer, producer of TV. And apparently he loves wrestling, which is great. More power to him. If he loves wrestling, that's fine. But I just wanted him off my TV so damn bad. And then he just kept adding to the fight. It was a real mess. Stardom is great. I've never actually experienced a lot of Stardom, but they had a Stardom women's 6-woman tag match, which was quite a bit of fun on Supercard of Honor. Of course, main event, Jay Briscoe and Eddie Kingston. You know, when I think about, like, this is going to sound cynical, but when I think about guys that keep it real in the world of wrestling, those are two guys that I think eat, sleep, live, breathe it. And to go further with that, I think about wrestling in kind of this way. There are people in wrestling that have credibility in terms of their characters and their presentation. There are people in wrestling who add an aura of realism to wrestling. And there are people in wrestling that add an aura of authenticity, right? It feels like they're, and what I mean by that, to further explain, like when I hear Eddie Kingston cut a promo or when I see Eddie Kingston wrestle, I feel like he believes it. When I see Jon Moxley out there wrestling, like he believes it, right? And I hate to like fucking tear down like kayfabe and to shoot it to work. I'm just like, but I'm just saying like there's an aura of realism when I see the way, you know, Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley and other people like that, Cody Rhodes, you know, not to just name a bunch of AEW people, but Cody Rhodes as well. Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, those people carry themselves in a very realistic, they present themselves in a very realistic manner. There are people who maybe don't come across as quite as realistic, but still have a lot of credibility. What I mean by that is I think about people like Randy Orton, a guy who's been doing it forever, comes from a wrestling family. You know, Randy Orton is the legend killer for a reason. He's put in the work. He's out there doing it, right? So even if you think his character maybe isn't that, you know, believable, or if you don't think he really believes in his presentation of the character, he doesn't really feel like he's being his authentic self, I still think there's something to Randy Orton just from a credibility standpoint, right? And then authenticity, when we think about authenticity, like I think Eddie Kingston is out there being Eddie Kingston. I don't think anyone's telling Eddie Kingston to Eddie Kingston. I don't think Tony Khan's not out there being like, hey, Eddie, can you like be more like you're from New York? Like, no, Eddie Kingston is that guy. My point is that I find that I prefer it if my wrestling can hit all three of those categories between a sense of realism, a sense of authenticity, and a sense of credibility. And I think that's where a place like AEW, Ring of Honor, at times does a really good job of kind of nailing all three of those things. WWE, on the other hand, I think usually tries to go for a 2 out of 3, right? So I think about a guy like Roman Reigns, and it's like, how can we let this guy hardly wrestle? The man barely shows up to work. And on top of that, every match he has is just the most, like, how would I put it? And there's no disrespect to the god, to the tribal chief himself, but how do we still produce matches where it's just nothing but blatant cheating, left, right, and center? Has the mob storyline of the bloodline gotten to the point where there's no way to just have a single match in which the better man wins without, like, it's just interference, distraction? It's a lot. It's like some Attitude Era level of just fuckery in a lot of Roman Reigns' matches. The point I'm trying to make is I loved, you know, a lot of the indie stuff that I watched because, you know, you kind of already know what they're going to do. You kind of know what their style is. And that they really are just trying to put on, you know, the best matches that they can. No bones about it, right? There's no like, hey, you may never watch. I'll give you the example. You may never watch another Speedball Mike Bailey match again if you just randomly started watching a GCW show and he was on it. You may never see Speedball Mike Bailey wrestle again. So it's in their best interest and all of these wrestlers, these indie wrestlers' best interest, to go out there and put on the best show possible so that they can get noticed by people like TNA, New Japan, AEW, Ring of Honor, WWE, you know, NXT, that sort of thing, right? It is in their best interest to go out there and put on banger after banger. This is going to sound cynical, but it's not necessarily what WWE's best interest is. Like, and the most obvious example is the difference between NXT and the NXT TakeOver and the WWE WrestleMania series, or the WrestleMania 2 nights show. Because say what you will about the quality of some of the matches on that NXT TakeOver, but I truly believe that everyone was out there with their working shoes on, trying to put on the best damn physical matches that they possibly could, the best technical wrestling they could, the best high flying, the best whatever, right? They just were out there trying to put on the best match they can. Great examples of that are the tag team title match that opened up NXT TakeOver and the triple threat match that followed that show. The Roxanne Perez, Lyra Valkyria, also good match for the most part. The main event, Carmelo and Trick, of course, pretty good match as well. But like, it just, they know that they need to continue to impress, right? They need to continue to push themselves, both from a booking standpoint in terms of, you know, what they can, portray in storyline, but also the type of matches they produce. Once you get to be on a level of a Roman Reigns or in The Rock, you can spend 45 minutes in a what is essentially a street fight that has little to no violence or action in it whatsoever. It's just The Rock going out to the crowd and punching fucking like Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes for like 20 minutes and barely taking any bumps, barely taking any work. Because why? He doesn't have to. But that's one of the things that I really appreciated about, you know, a lot of the indie shows, Supercard of Honor, and NXT TakeOver, is like, I want to see great matches. And maybe that's the difference between me and other WWE, you know, me and WWE fans. First of all, I would say that I'm at a point now in my life where I would not consider myself a WWE fan. I keep morbid curiosity tabs on the promotion. And if I did watch it, I would watch NXT, because NXT seems to be pretty good, though maybe not the black and gold brand that I remember it as, but still decent stuff. Again, Axiom, Nathan Frazier, all that stuff, Dijak, good stuff. Okay, so I'm kind of teasing what I think about WrestleMania as I get to talking about it, but I didn't love WrestleMania. I did not love WrestleMania 40. I was not blown away. For a vast majority of that show, I was not blown away. First and foremost, let's talk night one. I'm going to pull up the list. I'm not going to go through every match on night one, because I really don't think there's a point in doing that. But let me just pull up the list of matches from night one, and let's talk about it. Where are the results? Here we go. Rhea Ripley, Becky Lynch. I think most of the women put on great matches throughout the whole show. Becky Lynch may be sick or with the cold or whatever, but her and Rhea Ripley still went out there, put on a great, pretty good match, all things considered. I was pretty disappointed in the 6-pack tag team ladder match. One, I don't like Austin Theory and Grayson Waller, and you might be thinking, GnittWitt, you're not supposed to like them. They're bad guys. No, it's not that. I can boo a bad guy. For example, I think Don Callis is a piece of work, both in wrestling and out of wrestling. But in my negative feelings toward Grayson Waller and Austin Theory are, I wish they would just go away. I wish they would put better people in the position that those guys are in, because I think they're awful. They're really awful. But on top of that, you have other great tag teams like DIY, Judgment Day, New Day. And I just felt like that match just never clicked. There's just something about that ladder match. Just felt like just going through molasses. I don't know. It just wasn't great. I also didn't love the finish of the match for the most part. I don't like the idea of, let me see here. I don't love the idea of Austin Theory and Grayson Waller being tag team champions. But I also don't know what you do with, R-Truth and The Miz as tag team champions either. It just feels like they had an opportunity to unify the tag team belts. They didn't. And now it just seems like a less interesting proposition by having an awful tag team in the form of the awful tag team in the form of Austin Theory and Grayson Waller, and then a tag team that feels like it could break up at any moment with Awesome Truth, The Miz, and R-Truth. But listen, R-Truth, one of the greatest of all time. So I'm more than happy to see R-Truth get his WrestleMania moment, even in a match that I didn't particularly love. listen, I like Rey Mysterio and I like Andrade, but the tag team match with Dirty Dom and Santos Escobar didn't do anything for me. There was a point. At one point, I've gone back and forth on this. I don't know if Jey Uso versus Jimmy Uso was the worst match of all of WrestleMania, or if it was the Bloodline versus The Rock and Cody Rhodes, because fucking what are we doing with Jey and Jimmy Uso? It was just super kick after super kick after super kick. There was no selling. There was no psychology. I think they thought that psychology was like melodrama, but it wasn't. It just, by the time that match was over, I didn't care. I felt like both guys came out of that match looking worse than they did going in. Jay freaking C saying Andrade is way too good to be used like that. I know. So here's the thing. I'm talking about Andrade in chat. Jay freaking C. I wish the WWE would use their luchadors as if they were actual luchadors and not like cultural, just like, I don't want to like paint with a broad brush, but it's like, you got guys like Axiom and Nathan Frazier and other great, high flyers in NXT. You got Dragon Lee. You got Rey Mysterio. You got the GOAT. You got the GOAT, Rey Mysterio, like the greatest of all time. And he's just out there fighting his son again, like he did last year. And last year's match was so much better. Rey Mysterio versus Dirty Dom from last year, way better than this year. And it just feels like they're just throwing the luchadors together and then not actually letting them do luchador things. It just feels like they're doing their own melodrama sports entertainment thing. I want to see luchadors out there doing lucha shit. Now, if you want to argue that Rey Mysterio is an older gentleman who maybe cannot do the lucha shit the way that he used to, fine, protect Rey Mysterio. But Andrade and Santos Escobar are great, walking wild with that fucking crazy springboard thing off the middle rope. Like, the man's just crazy, and they're not cooking the way that luchadors should be cooking. It's just disappointing. But the thing I'll just say is, like, that Jey and Jimmy Uso match just stunk, man. I don't know how else to put it. It stunk. The 6-woman tag match was probably the most forgettable women's match of the show. I don't know if Jade Cargill is actually getting better technically as a wrestler, or if WWE just realized that it doesn't matter how much moves and wrestling she actually does. She's going to go out there and look like $1 million, and that's all that matters. Sami Zayn and Gunther, tremendous. Sami winning the big one. I was pretty happy to see him do that. So fantastic. I'm very curious to see what Gunther, so I keep calling him Walter, and I probably shouldn't, but because I'm going to sound like an asshole if I call him Walter, but Gunther, excited to see what Gunther does. But Sami Zayn and Gunther really tore it up. And that Bloodline match, man, it's like they were worried about getting injured. That match was nearly 45 minutes long. Tell me why that match needed to be 45 minutes long. Why? So The Rock could like put in a bunch of like kicks and punches and shit and not actually wrestle? I don't. Again, I think the Jey and Jimmy Uso match was more obnoxious because they completely lost the plot. We're talking Pug and Burrito, talking football. We are talking wrestling, but it's a good question. The Jey and Jimmy Uso match, terrible. The Rock and the Blood. So here's the thing. Here's how I discern the differences. And the reason we're doing this is because we've finished talking about video games. We talked about the Fallout TV show. We talked about the news. And I've saved the wrestling for the end of the podcast. So there's that. And I also never talk about wrestling on the podcast. I figured I would just do it for this episode towards the end, and then maybe we'll never talk about wrestling again. But the Jey and Jimmy Uso match was just stunk. The Bloodline match was obnoxious, especially in how long it was. I understand that they needed to do it the way they did so that they could set up night 2. But I think those like that and kind of a wimpy, luchador tag match and a wimpy 6-man tag match, I just feel like night 1 was just stunk. Night 2 night 2 was better, but I think night 1 was just really dragged down by. When I look at the night 1 show, the card, there were 2 good matches. Sami Zayn and Gunther, Rhea Ripley and Becky Lynch. That's it. So that means to me that WWE has got to stop doing these 2-night events because it's not working. They don't have enough. They either don't let these people go out there and produce great matches, however they do. I'm not saying that they have control over what the wrestlers do. I'm just saying like the matches themselves are not great. And if there's only 2 of them, you could have probably made it a 1-night show and it'd been a lot better. Let's talk night 2. Night 2, banger. Drew McIntyre and Seth freaking Rollins. If Seth Rollins, the Messiah, legit still has a knee injury, it did not look like that because he was out there kicking ass, doing a fantastic job of putting over Drew McIntyre. I thought the Philadelphia street fight was not great, but Snoop Dogg on commentary was a lot of fun. And for that, I will say it was, I'll tell you what, my hot take, the Philadelphia street fight was better than the ladder match on night 1. I'll tell you that right now. LA Knight, AJ Styles, a good match, a very fun match. Logan Paul, Kevin Owens, and Randy Orton maybe got a little long as it approached the nearly 20-minute mark, but a fun triple threat match. It's unfortunate that Logan Paul won because I think he's a dirtbag, but that's okay because once the bell rings, Logan Paul is probably the best celebrity wrestler to ever lace up a pair of boots. Bayley and Io Sky, another great match from night 2. It's just so crazy to me that the WWE, Bubba, Jay freaking C in chat saying Bubba Ray's the GOAT. I'll tell you what. All right. This is gonna, oh boy. I'm not saying that Bubba Ray isn't the GOAT. I'm just saying that I'm sure glad they got him instead of Tommy Dreamer. I think it makes sense to have, Bubba Ray as the ref for the Philadelphia street fight. I just don't think that like Bobby Lashley and Karrion Kross work great in a street fight setting. And, in a scenario where WWE is trying to produce a violent match a la a street fight, having a couple chairs and a couple tables just seems so tame, by even standards that WWE has set in the past. And I feel like, okay, so let me try to say this. Whether you do War Games or Hell in a Cell or a street fight or a no DQ or an I Quit or a Falls Count Anywhere, like once you get to that level of, gimmick matches, I expect a bare minimum of violence, for lack of a better word. If you're going to do this type of stuff, I expect a bare minimum of violence, of weapons, of whatever, right? I'm not asking for ECW. I'm not asking for AEW levels of violence. I'm just saying I expect a bare minimum. And I feel like the Philadelphia street fight didn't quite deliver on that. I would also argue that the Bloodlines rules match, the main event, also a distinct lack of like actual, like it doesn't justify the gimmick. It doesn't justify having a no DQ match, other than the reason they do a no DQ match for Cody and Roman is because Roman's going to cheat 47 different times towards the end of the match anyways. So they might as well let him do that instead of trying to justify why he cheats and gets away with it. You see what I'm saying? In the Philadelphia street fight match, they at least are like, well, we're going to use tables and chairs and try to produce like some EC level of, ECW level of violence. Pug and a Burrito saying, I don't know anything on this, but I will listen anyways. You are a real one, Pug and a Burrito. Ladder match. You expect people to go through ladders, shit to break and fall apart. And it kind of did that, but it just wasn't very exciting. The Philadelphia street fight, again, they used some weapons, but maybe not that great. And then in the Bloodline rules match, it's just like, well, we're going to have Roman cheat and we're going to let him get away with it because XYZ. That being said, Cody did finish the story and beat Roman Reigns, big celebratory moment. But I can't help but think that overall, I was not impressed by WrestleMania 40. I enjoyed my time with Night 2, and I feel like if they had made it a 2-night event by also including the Rhea Ripley and Sami Zayn match in Night 2, that would have been a lot better. Or if they at least made the tag match better, or I don't know. It's just, they have a lot of belts in WWE. They have a lot of talent in WWE. At some point, you do need a longer show to put all of these people, give them prominent features. But when they do that, they don't deliver, like the 6-woman tag match, like the ladder match. Jay freaking Scene's chat saying I cried a little for Cody. Hey, wrestling, that's a beautiful thing, man. Listen, and Cody, and to give Cody credit, like, this is not the first time people have probably teared up over Cody Rhodes, right? I think about brother versus brother AEW, right? And I remember just crying like a goddamn baby. Cody versus Dustin in AEW, right? Now, part of that's also the promo in which Cody cut a promo during his kind of acceptance of the title at the end of the WrestleMania Night 2 match. But Cody, hey, listen, if you need a tear-jerking moment, call on Cody Rhodes, because the man delivers more than Uber Eats from this sound of things. But like I said, Night 2, pretty good. Night 1, not very good. And I wish they could find a way to better produce a cohesive and consistent single night of wrestling, even if that means doing a pre-show. If you're going to make the main show a 5-hour show and do an hour-long pre-show that's just filled with matches, because here's the other thing. I told you I'm not a big WWE fan. I don't need to be a WWE fan to know what happens going into these pay-per-views, because these pay-per-views are so filled with backstory. It's like they assume their audience isn't actively watching the show, or that their fans are incredibly casual fans. So if WWE is trying to appeal to people like me who are going to tune in for WrestleMania and having not watched the show, great. They did a fantastic job, because I did not need to watch 6 months of wrestling. I've not watched a WWE pay-per-view since Survivor Series. And I haven't watched an NXT TakeOver since, I think, Vengeance Day. And I was pretty up on every story going into WrestleMania, because they beat it into you during the show. Which means that if they did a 5-hour main card and a 1-hour pre-show, I think they could probably make a better show than 2 4-ish hour shows back to back. So that's it for WWE. I'll check back in 6 months or something. Maybe I'll watch SummerSlam or something. I don't know, but I also don't think Tyler Bate, just looking at this whole layout, I don't think Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne work well together. Like, I love Tyler Bate. I hate that they call Tyler Bate a big, strong boy. That's just weird. Don't call him a big, strong boy. He's a man. It's weird. I'm glad that they call Pete Dunne again. I think Butch was a terrible name. But New Catch Republic is a terrible name for the tag team. And I also just don't think Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate work well together. It's just as weird as an era where you have 2 great technical wrestlers, 2 great technical British wrestlers, and they don't work well together. Which is another reason why that ladder match stunk in my opinion. But anyways, if you think what I had to say about WWE was negative, wait until you hear what I had to say about AEW Dynamite this week. Holy shit. Oh man. Oh God. Look, I am a big fan of AEW. I think AEW does great work. To me, I was just talking about how, you know, in a lot of scenarios, I feel like AEW is trying to whether they're successful or not. Often often AEW is trying to present and bring the type of wrestling that I want. I want the feeling that AEW tries to provide. However, last night on Dynamite, one of the worst episodes of Dynamite I think they have ever done. Just trash. And here's the funny thing about how bad that Dynamite was, is that the matches that they had between Adam Copeland and Penta and Dustin Rhodes and Samoa Joe, those were fantastic matches. Those are the types of matches. That's the feeling that I want to get out of AEW. I also thought like the women's segment was fun and fine. If a little short, and the Mariah May match versus Anna Jay, the only reason it made sense to me is because I watched Supercard of Honor, so that's fine. But everything else, and I'm going to be nice to Will Ospreay, because I like Will Ospreay. Everything else about Dynamite, oh my God. They hyped up that the Young Bucks were going to present that footage of All In. Why they're doing it 8 months later, I don't know. But that footage of CM Punk and Jungle Boy Jack Perry, a huge waste of time. A huge waste of time. At no point was I convinced did my opinion sway of CM Punk one way or the other. In fact, I think I left that Young Buck segment more indifferent and caring less than I did going in. Because here's the thing. I was already sold on the idea of the Young Bucks versus FTR 4. Why? Because every time the Young Bucks and FTR step into the ring together, they put on a badass tag team match. I didn't care about the reason for the story. They did the tournament. They got to the end. Fine. Let's just do the match at Dynasty. I don't care. But instead they're like, oh, what about FTR being friends with CM Punk? Yeah, what about FTR being friends with CM Punk? Who fucking cares? Who cares? The only reason they tried to do this so that they could find a unique angle to repackage and represent Jungle Boy as a friend of the Young Bucks when he comes back, and it fell flat. I feel bad. They did my man Jungle Boy dirty with that presentation, and they didn't make CM Punk look any worse than he already does, and I'm not a fan of CM Punk as it is. But if you are a fan of CM Punk, I don't think that swayed your opinion. Watching that footage of All In, just a disaster. Just a total disaster. And then they have FTR go in the ring and they're rambling, and I don't understand what their problem is, because they come out of, if anything, FTR came out of that All In footage looking better than the Bucks for presenting it anyways. What a mess. And then you got people chanting CM Punk in an AEW ring, which is never something that you want to hear, but it happened. You got Will Ospreay out there responding to Triple H. And I think Will Ospreay spoke from the heart, and I think Will Ospreay is keeping it real. And I think, unfortunately, his promo was hampered by AEW trying to respond to CM Punk and WWE in the last segment that they did. If they hadn't, I don't think that's Will Ospreay promo would have been so bad, but they did it, and it made Will Ospreay's promo worse as a result. The only good promo of the night was Eddie Kingston and Mark Briscoe and Willow and Stokely and Adam Copeland backstage, and they're just so angry about they're just so pissed off about the bloodline. Sorry, not the bloodline, the House of Black, excuse me. Everyone's so mad about the House of Black. They're like, all right, we're going to fight, and we're just going to What are we doing? We're gonna fight. Nah, we're gonna do a tag match before the pay-per-view. We're gonna do a tag match for the pay-per-view, and Willow at some point was gonna fight Adam Copeland. The whole thing was weird, and I feel like they couldn't stop laughing, and they just couldn't stop just. It was like Jimmy Fallon laughing at his own jokes during an SNL sketch. The whole thing was weird, but at least that promo felt, more like what I come to expect AEW to do from just people are just very excited and happy to be there, sort of thing, and they genuinely want to push the story. But I digress. Not to quote the great Taz, but I digress. I actually skipped. I got to be honest. I didn't even end up watching the whole Mercedes Moné promo because it was maybe, from everything I saw, it was maybe her worst promo in AEW so far. I think Mercedes Moné has not figured out her voice in AEW. I don't think she's figured out her voice at all. I think she was too used to scripted promos in WWE. I think she was too used to reading dialogue and scripted dialogue on the set of shows like The Mandalorian and stuff like that. I just don't think she was ready for, being kind of thrown into the deep end of the promo game. Because I would argue that promo game for AEW is usually pretty fire. You got a lot of great talkers. You got a lot of people that just get to go out there and be themselves and do their thing. And Mercedes Moné is not used to going out there by herself and doing her own thing. That's just not what she did in the past, and has really suffered as a result. And I think that last night's promo, maybe or Wednesday's promo, maybe her worst promo to date. So, and I could keep going on and on and on, but I think at some point, like, the thing I'm going to say is that, like, AEW is at its best when it tries to be the opposite of what WWE is. There are things that AEW should do more like WWE, and a lot of that comes down to like promotion and marketing. But them trying to be more like WWE it never works. It's never worked in the past. It will never work. And I think that so let me put it to you this way. There are people who watch both WWE and AEW, but do you know why they do that? Is because they like both, but they offer different things, right? There are people like me who don't watch WWE regularly and only watch AEW, and it's because, to me, what AEW has to offer, what WWE has to offer, I just don't care for, right? There are people like both, right? But I'll tell you what's a great way to make people turn away from AEW, whether they watch WWE or not. It's by trying to make AEW more like WWE. Awful promos don't help. Bad storylines, like overbooked, melodramatic storylines don't help. And I feel like AEW has really got to step up their game, especially as they are 1 week away from their Dynasty pay-per-view, because last night's show stunk, man, and it just reeked of an embarrassing attempt to be more like WWE, for worse, when they should be focusing on people like Adam Copeland, focusing on people like Samoa Joe, getting Dustin Rhodes out there, doing his thing, tearing it up, getting Penta out there doing his thing, having a more of an emphasis on the women. I think Mariah May is a tremendous wrestler. I think the women they brought in from Stardom really tore it up on Ring of Honor's Supercard of Honor. But man, so this is going to sound maybe a little blasphemous, but I think I'm going to take a break from AEW for a week. I'm going to skip. I'll watch Ring of Honor this week. I'm going to skip Rampage. And I'm probably going to skip Collision, because I have this feeling that like AEW has not gotten the shit out of their system. Now, in fairness, Collision tends to be a better show than Dynamite on some weeks. So maybe I'll give Collision a chance, but I just want to I want AEW to get this shit out of their system, man, because going into Dynasty, we didn't need this. We didn't need any of this. And it's really unfortunate as a result. But it'll also give me more time to watch the Fallout TV show, which I wanted to finish before the podcast next week. That was a lot of wrestling talk. I'm sorry for those that I lost in the process, going from talking about video games to wrestling. But that is going to do it for the podcast. I have been GnittWitt. You can find everything that I do over at my Linktree, linktree.com/GnittWitt, GnittWitt, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, you name it, I'm there. A lot of TikToks, more videos coming soon. Make sure to check out my TikTok. I'm really trying to grow that channel if you have the opportunity. And we will see you all next week for more great video game talk. I've been GnittWitt. We'll see you next week. Take it easy.